The story that I'm sharing this morning is not in the book that I gave many of you a couple of months ago. This episode of my life happened years ago during Thanksgiving week, making it easier to feel and share my gratitude for what happened. This event was so far back in time that my first wife and I were still raising our 4 children. The story headline is Knocking on Death's Door. It seemed like any other November Sunday evening in Phoenix. Arizona's intense summer heat was a memory, and people were outside enjoying the cool evening. I had no way of knowing Sunday, November 23rd, would be a day I would remember for decades, much longer than I would recall what happened 4 days later, Thanksgiving Day, a day I planned to celebrate at my favorite fast food restaurant. It was 1980, and I was living alone in the big desert city. On Labor Day, I had left my family in California while our horse ranch was being sold. I had established a new home in Phoenix and was seeking a few friendships before I moved my entire family over to Arizona. I had found continuing employment as a teacher and added income with evening and weekend employment at a local store. That Sunday, my work shift ended at 6 p.m., giving me time to grab some fast food before walking a short distance to attend a 7 p.m. worship service at a local church, where I always parked my motorcycle before beginning work. I had begun to feel comfortable at this local church where I already had several friends. But this night, I felt very strange just as I entered the church. At first, it was a little lightheadedness, but that quickly changed to nausea and stomach pains. A short time later, those pains became abdominal cramps, and I began to sweat profusely. I knew I would not make it through the service, so I left my back row pew, walking like an old man. Though I was barely 40, I appeared twisted and bent and unable to stand erect. I found my motorcycle in the dark parking lot and started it with difficulty. Riding the bike was challenging because I didn't know if or how I would be able to ride the bike hunched over that machine. I rode slowly a short distance to the apartment of a friend I had met at a morning church service. While I rang the doorbell, I leaned against Sybil's apartment door, trying to keep my groaning quiet. Suddenly, she opened the door, and I fell to the floor inside her apartment. She was obviously shocked to see a person she had known for only 2 months lying on her floor, acting like he was at death's door. "What's wrong?" she said quickly. "I think I got some bad food," I said with difficulty. "Let me help you to the couch," she offered, but in my pride, I refused help and crawled to the couch, where the constant abdominal pains kept me bent and moaning. Sybil kept offering me a trip to the emergency room, but I refused, saying this would pass as quickly as it had begun. "I just need a place to rest," I said. Oh, how wrong I was. During the next 20 minutes, the pain continued increasing in intensity, convincing even stubborn me I needed help. At the emergency room, I was given several doses of pain medicine and muscle relaxants, but since the first dose had no effect, they gave me another and another, until The doctor said the amount I received should have made me unconscious, but I was still lying on the padded table, suffering from the relentless pain. By 9 p.m., Sybil was still sitting by my side and quietly praying for my healing. She asked me where my family was at. I struggled to speak. In California. I had no idea about the seriousness of my condition, and I don't think the doctors did either, not until their tests discovered nothing was moving through my intestines. My body's reaction to the food poisoning had been so violent, one doctor said, it had twisted and blocked my intestine. I was in a countdown to death. Another doctor told Sybil, who began calling my family and people in the church's prayer chain. I was beginning an overnight ordeal with a small tube inserted in my nose all the way down to my stomach. The doctors said the tube might create a vacuum inside my stomach that might help my body untwist the intestines, hopefully ending the pain. Might? I did not recognize any change in my condition. That's when I overheard two doctors saying a few hours of intestinal blockage can be fatal. Again, not good news. Midnight had come and gone before the large quantity of drugs finally showed their strength. The drugs had put my brain in a fog, and my responses were much too slow for the doctors. I was rushed to the nearby hospital, where I was told those doctors knew more about treating this condition because of their experiences. At the hospital, a half dozen doctors and physician's assistants stood around my gurney, trying everything that might relax the twisted, blocked intestine. But nothing changed. By 2 a.m., the hospital doctors were talking among themselves like they were ready to give up. I felt like I had been given no options. Then quietly, but passionately, while trying to ignore the pain, I added my own prayers to our Creator, persistently asking for relief from the pain and imminent death. Until my focus was on prayer instead of pain, nothing had changed. Then I quietly spoke to God, placing my life in those life-saving hands. I know I shocked the doctors at 2:30 a.m. just as they were approaching the door to leave. I spoke to them very calmly as I said, now there was much less pain. They were so excited. Said, listening to my calm voice mainly, and no groans and no moans, they said I should just rest until morning when a doctor would check on my recovery. In the morning, the absence of pain and a trip to a nearby restroom proved that my intestines were back to normal. My miraculous recovery amazed the doctors, but I knew I was healed by the hand of God. And that's why I share my gratitude. Hours of prayers had been answered, especially my prayers, but also prayers from my family, my friends, Sybil's friends, and from church members who had become my friends. I've been grateful for this miracle for more than 4 decades. It's a feeling of gratitude that never weakens. It reminds me of Exodus 16, where God provides manna from heaven for the starving Israelites. Also in Psalm 34, David says, I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. God used my closeness to death that November night to teach me a lesson in 4 words: pray with expectant faith. Pray with expectant faith. That night, I learned God can make something good from any situation, and I have shared my appreciation, my gratitude with our Creator since that painful but wonderful Sunday. My prayers each Thanksgiving week, as well as other times during each year, include gratitude for the blessing of being touched by the hand of God and for God's presence and grace each day of my life. Amen.